Chair, are you going to go over the consent items? Or
We're doing the consent now.
consent? Oh, okay.
Okay. Margie, you ready? Okay, I'll reconvene the meeting, and we are moving on to the consent item. And I've been asked to pull item 8, 11, 12, and 13.
12 and 13.
Would anybody else from the public like any items pulled?
The public had requested number 13 as well.
Okay. Is that member still here?
13?
No.
They might come back, though.
Okay, all right. Okay. Okay.
Motion to approve amended consent, Mr. Chair.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes 5-0. Okay, item number 8.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just spoke with Steve briefly, and I was just wanting to know the additional monies that we are putting on the budget are 1.2 million approximately, and there is an explanation, but there's a special department expense of 858,000. So I just wanted a little more explanation on those funds.
Certainly. Basically, what we're talking about here are the roads funds that the county has in its fund. Basically, what we're doing with this action is the state controller, as well for our own general audit, has asked the Public Works to do something about its road funds. Basically, what happens is there were 3 funds that were kind of commingled in the past, and what the auditor asked us to do is straighten that out. They've been asking us to do it for a while. With the assistance of auditing, and as you may remember, the audit subcommittee knows this very well. We had to talk about this the other day, but for the general board and general public, we actually have a contract auditor to assist us with our road audit. This go-around firm from Ray Gugliardi from Wayashi and Hayland, or Hayland and Wayashi, I always get that backwards, I apologize, come in and assist us with our auditing efforts, and she was able to pull this off for the audit this year. So what this actual item is for us is a reconciliation, and it's a truing up of those separate funds. Those 3 funds, one was negative, one was slightly positive, and one was kind of overstated. This item will correct those items. The special funds that you're referring to, the special line item that you're referring to, basically the special department expenses for the roads department is roads materials. What it does is this budget unit purchases asphalt, rock, and so forth, and things of that nature. Those are special to this particular fund, and that's what that line item is for. It puts the money in this unit to be expended, although we have to put it somewhere, for that's the whole cleaning up process. We really don't anticipate spending all that fund this particular year, but it's there because it has to go somewhere for the auditing purpose. I'm not sure if that helped you. It's not really new money.
That's
it's
what
just, yeah, it's not really new money. I should start that with that. It's not new money. It's a realignment of those 3 funds into one fund, and it's a cleanup process.
Okay, so we're really just reclassifying it, so to speak, but we don't have an additional 1.2 million that we can say, woo.
Correct.
No?
Correct.
Okay, so thank you, I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I had that pulled myself, and that kind of clears things up in my mind. So the let's call it 1.2 million coming, where did it come from? What other part of your budget?
Basically, what it was line items for the road funds. Has had 3 different funding sources with it, and what we're doing is that what the state auditor wanted us to do was bring those forward to the budget process and have those allocated on an annual basis. Previously, we didn't do that. We had some funds and only allocated portions of that. So what this item will do is it'll bring all those funds forward to their fullest extent. That way we can audit them and keep track of them separately as one line item as opposed to 3 different ones into the future.
I see. Oh, okay. All right. That's Margie asked,
Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Barrios asked the question I had, so.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Rest
So,
of the group?
Steve, I didn't say on June 30th, when the new fiscal year starts, July 1st, in between those 2 dates, whatever unspent funds will revert back to the traffic congested relief fund and the other one, right? Or is that going to go all to general fund contingency?
Basically, what it all does, it all stays in, it's all within the traffic fund account. So it all stays within traffic funds. We have to allocate them now to clean those up and then at the end of the year, if what's not spent, we'll return to that one single item in the traffic fund, and then we'll allocate
Again, next year.
next year
Okay.
as to what the board determines is appropriate level.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Any member of the public? Okay, seeing none, what's the pleasure of the board?
I'll move to approve per staff recommendation.
Se-
Authorize chair to sign.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes 5-0. Okay, item number 11.
Yes, I think I have that one, Mr. Chairman. A tire repair, tire machine package, and I imagine it's very similar to what you see in the tire shops as far as taking the rim off and putting a new tire on. Do we have that many flat tires that we just can't take it to a shop uptown and take care of it?
Actually, you'd be surprised how many flat tires we do achieve, because remember, a lot of our vehicles do that get the flat tires are the ones that have the crews that go out and clean the sides of the roads and things of that nature. They pick up a lot of nails and things of that nature. We probably go to, right now, under our contract, maintenance contract, we go to San Diego Tire for those repairs. We probably have, on the average of a tire a day that gets popped or gets a nail in it between the sides of the road and going into the landfill, depositing things and so forth. We do change a lot of tires. We do have a lot of bills coming from San Diego Tire. And it would actually, we've looked at the numbers, and actually over the course of probably 3 years, this would pay for itself. One of the things for the board's consideration, it's not really an item on this, wasn't mentioned so much on this item because it may come forward, it's kind of pending out there, is the discussion that we're still having with COG to be able to share this machine, because obviously it's a tire machine and it sits there, it's not going to be used 24/7. If COG buses have a flat tire, they can be able to come over and use it. It wasn't in Lisa's, director for COG's, budget this year. However, we've been talking about it, and she may be trying to allocate a portion to pay for half of that machine so that her staff could use it as well. Since it's kind of unforeseen because that budget hasn't passed yet, we have enough money in our budget. It was allocated in the budget process. We're buying it all so we can get use of it. And then if COG is able to, utilize that and pass that in their budget, they'll essentially take ownership of half of the equipment, be able to share the equipment between COG for their buses and for us for our equipment as well. So.
Okay, and we have the expertise of the person to be able to change these tires, because there takes a little bit of training.
It does take a little bit of training, and actually we're very fortunate because one of our guys who was one of our more recent hires at the shop has actually worked for San Diego Tire at one point in his life. So he is very familiar with changing tires and the kinds of equipment. And he was actually kind of our resident expert to help us pick which model to go for and what we should be looking for and things to go into. And we also actually did run it by some other experts in the field to make sure we got the right one.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
Steve, what is the lifespan of this vehicle?
The vehicle or the tire machine?
Well, both, the vehicle and the tire machine.
Well, the tire machine is expected to last with normal repairs items up to 10 to 12 years.
10 to 12 years?
For this machine itself, with normal wear and tear on that. Tires that we have are varied because, like I say, I'm assuming that's part of the cars you're talking about, is the tires themselves, and we do go through quite a number of tires.
How many you go in a year? How many tires do you go in a year?
I don't have that off the top of my
Give me
head.
a rough estimate.
Like I say, we on average are have flats in probably 5 tires a week. So 5 times 250 tires
250 tires a year.
a year is what we're replacing
And
flats on.
Who does this repair right now?
Right now, it's under contract with San Benito Tire.
So
and
they
then-
bring an emergency truck out there to the location?
No, we bring it to them. What
We
we
bring it
do
to
is
them.
we have our fleet vehicles go out, service it, or get it towed back to the shop, or take the tire off of it and bring it to San Benito Tire. Now, some of our tires on the bigger trucks, like the dump trucks and so forth,
Yeah.
are too large to go to San Benito Tire, so we have to take those to Salinas, to Ross's, and get them repaired over there. Each one of those tires that needs to be replaced, or for a
How
flat.
much does Rossi charges you to replace those big truck tires?
You know what? Off the top of my head, it's in the neighborhood of $100-150,
And we have to take them out there, right?
and we take them to Salinas.
So you figure about $250 after fuel, time, labor.
Yes.
About that
That's why
time.
we think that 2 or 3 years of this machine operating that has capability within our shop, we would make up that difference.
Okay, it's a good rate of return. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Anybody from the public? Seeing none, what's the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion to approve staff recommendation.
Second?
Okay, I have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes 5-0. And I believe Supervisor
I pulled 12.
Patello, you pulled the next one also?
Yeah, the reason I pulled this is, all right, so we hired the consultants to do the environmental impact report. They've pretty much got a lot of it done, but because of the possibility of closing Nash Road, they need to do further, I assume, traffic studies. And we supposedly have partners in this, and I didn't see where there's a share of who's paying for what. I know we're paying for $18,790. Is Hollister paying for any of it, and is the high school district paying for any of it?
Actually, at this point in time, no. So to put that into context, basically what we're doing is you had it exactly right, is we are expanding the scope for the traffic consultant to look at the potential of what impacts would happen if the Nash Road was closed. As part of the process to acquire, and just to put it in perspective for the board as well, as part of the process to acquire some subject property from the high school, one of the negotiating points that the high school brought forward was to have the topic of Nash Road closure on the table. And that wasn't part of the Parks Master Plan, and therefore it wasn't included in the scope when the consultant initially did that work. So now that that has become on the table due to the property negotiations for the high school piece of property, it's basically better to have the same consultant working on that, do that same model, and do those additional traffic run scenarios as you talked about, so we can answer the questions for the high school, not for the high school, for the city in terms of what's going to happen to traffic as it goes to the neighborhoods. Because as you recall, for the public's point of view, that portion of Nash Road is joint jurisdiction of the county and the high school and the city. So the city and the high school have joint jurisdiction of that road. So the city also has to buy off on the closure of that road to make that transfer happen so we can actually negotiate with the high school. I'm going a long way to get there, but essentially when we did our initial estimates for what the bypass road would cost, what the traffic and engineering would cost for that, some traffic studies were included in that, and that number fits within the number we estimated back in time of $500,000 or so for that road construction. We had a number plugged in for traffic studies. That is within this document, within the range of this amendment. There is no connection at this point in time for the city to pay anything on this, and there is no point in time that we would receive a check back from the high school to pay for this. The thought process going forward was that essentially this has been included in the cost of what the county would be bringing to the table in exchange for the high school's property. So they won't be paying for it with cash dollars, but the transfer of land will be what their piece of...
You know, and this is what concerns me a little bit. I know we've been, you know, exploring the fact that we closed Nash Road, and I think at the last business council meeting that I attended a week and a half ago, they had a presentation from the superintendent of the high school. They want another tax to do some renovations of the campus, and one of the renovations was beautifying Nash Road after the county and the city turned it over to them. And I'm still not 100% sure that that's the right thing to do. You know, what concerns me is that half of the road is in my district from the high school west, and Riverside Road, and out that direction, I think the other side of the street is Supervisor Rivas's. But if you close Nash Road completely, the impact on the traffic to get around a high school through the neighborhoods, I don't know if I lived in that area, I'd be that excited about it. But more importantly, is the emergency access. I like, when I used to be on the fire department, we went in straight lines, and I think you're making the emergency access a lot more difficult through Nash Road area by having the little roundabout road that is being proposed to service the regional park, and or going through a residential neighborhood with a lot narrower roads. Also listening to the city, they haven't bought into it. From the mayor's perspective, I don't necessarily, as one supervisor, like the bargaining position that, well, county, if you want our land, you have to do this or just forget it. I don't like that, and that's the feeling I have. And maybe the people, the supervisors that are, on the intergovernmental committee might be a little bit more enlightened as far as everybody's position. But we're spending more money on something that, as the closure, when I see there's some other options during school, and they do this in other areas, during school hours, shut the road. Just shut the road. No problem. They do it in Watsonville High School. And during non-school hours, it's open. And people have to take some responsibility off school hours to be careful crossing the road. We want to maybe improve lighting or crosswalks, whatever we can. But I think that's the way to go rather than shutting down the road and turning it into a walkway. I think it jeopardizes other factors that should be taken into account. And I don't know if we should be going into this contract until we have a real consensus with our partners that this is the direction we want to go in.
If I could, Mr. Chair, Supervisor Botello, I can assure you that Supervisor De La Cruz and I are involved in this whole conversation of Nash Road. It's big in the intergovernmental. It's ongoing. I have a message from the mayor because he and I have committed to meet with the high school and with other parties. But I think what this is going to do is actually make it easier to negotiate where we're going to go by having these studies. So these studies are necessary to be able to get them at the table, be able to explain how we're going to maneuver through there. But without them, then we don't have anything. I think that they are on our side. They just need more information. They need more conversation. And correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, but that's where we're at right now.
You're absolutely correct. Actually, one of the things that this study will do will provide a lot of answers to some of those questions that are out there. We've actually bandied about some of those ideas that you've talked about, Supervisor Botello, in terms of changing partially, but we won't know any of those answers until we've actually done some kind of a study about it, because we can, debate, and the high school can say one thing, and the city can say, and we can say some other things, but until we actually have the study done that actually shows what actually happens, we're all basing it on guesswork. So in that fashion, the study is important because then we can actually, whether it's a closure of Nash or not closure of Nash, we'll have some actual hard data that shows what happens to traffic if that segment's closed for a period of time. So.
Yeah, and also remember that we expect in-kind donations or a contribution from the other agencies. So if we are adding an extra $18,000, that's going to go towards the cost of what San Benito County is investing in this, and we expect that same in-kind contribution from them. So
okay,
it won't go unnoticed.
Yeah, and I understand 18,000 it's not, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a lot of money, and as long as we're keeping track of that's fine. But I think some coordination needs to be worked with the high school, and they have to accept or should accept the fact that we should explore other options other than closing Nash Road. Maybe a temporary closure would suffice, and they should maybe accept that. The other thing that I hope, I know you're very intimate with the parks and intergovernmental and communicating all this, is that one of the things that surprised me was that the master plan for the high school had 4 or 5 ball fields up on the area that they control. In our regional park, we have 4 down below ourselves. That's 8 ball fields, and that's a lot of ball fields for the area, and maybe money could be better spent on design, coordination between what we're all trying to strive for. And that's just, I wanted to say that and just kind of keep that in the dialogue.
Okay, we will keep it in the dialogue.
Okay, I guess my comment is I kind of concur with Supervisor Patello. I'm concerned these agreements that we supposedly have are not in writing. I too hear the lack of commitment on the side of the city to close Nash Road. And for me, I'd like to see this continued until we can maybe get some kind of commitment from both the high school and the city on what we're doing with Nash Road, how it's going to affect our purchase of the land for the regional park, and if the city is actually buying into the closure of Nash Road.
But I think, as Steve said, we need this to be able to move forward with exactly what you're talking about, because then we will have the answers. The study will have been done. We will be able to show them, look, this is what's expected if you do A, if you do B, if you do C. There's different options.
Okay, but why are we bearing the full brunt of the cost? And if we're going to be reimbursed, why is that reimbursement plan in writing? Whether it's in-kind reimbursement?
So one of the things, and what we need to remember is we are on 2 different levels. When I'm talking to staff at the city, the staff has said that essentially until there's some kind of a staff report, they don't want to, as staff for the city, they don't want to even entertain the potential. One of the things that from the board members and intergovernmental, that's where the other part comes from. Just as a reminder, this portion is coming out of the negotiation process from the high school acquisition process. And the team was Ray, myself, Adam was there as well for the county side, and on the high school side was 2 board trustees and their interim, Mr. Rubicelli, was there as well. So that's where the communications has come from, and we're bringing it down this trail. How we proceed is it really comes from the staff level, trying to work with City Hollister staff, which says they need the study, and if I was in their shoes, I would say the same thing. But in terms of how we progress, that really comes to a different level in terms of where staff's at. I think intergovernmental, they've addressed it a little bit, and they want to see that to make sure it moves forward. But as Chair Munzer pointed out, right now we really don't have anything in writing about a lot of the stuff. So it's a lot on trust and faith, and a lot of that has to come from board down.
If I may, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yeah, the only way I think I could bring myself to support this is if, because I don't see it in the evaluation of the scenarios, is the temporary closing of the road during school hours, for instance.
And part of the reason why that's not there is because although it does work for other communities, the concern here is because of the way that the new gym is situated right across the street from the locker rooms. At night, there's a lot of traffic that actually has crossings across Nash Road. During the day, the temporary stop signs we have there, the high school has their campos who cross students, and they do a fairly good job during school hours. The real difficulty that this site actually has is the after-school events, basketball season, volleyball season, and so forth. When that gym is used, the newer gym across the street from the locker rooms is used, and we have students who are trying to get back and forth, and they always don't pay attention to cars around them. That's where the majority of accidents seem to happen, is in the evening hours, and that temporary closure from 8 to 5 really wouldn't help that. One of the things that has been considered or been brought to the table, though, is a little bit different than that, is a seasonal closing. Close it during school year, and then during the summer opening it. That's something that we can look at as part of an offshoot of one of these scenarios, because the scenarios are going to look at what happens to traffic during the school year, but it would be a lesser effect, obviously, if it was open during the summer, for example, when there isn't quite such a used campus. But the challenge of the temporary closure in the day is really because the gym and the locker room are on opposite sides
Of the road?
of the road. And
It's tough.
The students going back and forth from there at night are the ones that are having the difficulty.
Well, it sounds like it's a tremendous amount of stupidity on the high school's part to put the locker rooms on the other side of the road instead of on this side, and maybe that $30 per $100,000 assessment could develop a design that could put the locker rooms on the same side of the road.
Or they have a whole gym they'd have to move.
Okay. It's just, okay. Well, that's all I have to say.
Anyone from the public would like to comment on this? Seeing none, what's the pleasure of the board?
I was going to wait for Supervisor Botello, but I'm going to make the motion that we approve per staff recommendation.
So it'd be hard enough for me to vote for it.
I know, that's why I took the jump.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
I'm going to say no.
All right, passes 4-1. Okay, we'll move on to item number 13.
So why did we put the lockers on?
Maybe if
Good
you just-
afternoon.
Yeah, maybe if you can just kind of, I don't think the person that was here that asked it to be pulled, so maybe if you can just kind of, explain the item
Oh,
a little
okay.
bit, and then
Sure.
see if any of the supervisors have a
Okay.
question.
This item is an annual item that by law is required that the board give the treasurer the authority to continue doing what the treasurer is doing, and is investing and reinvesting their securities. That's it.
Okay, any questions from the member of the boards? Any question from the member of the public?
Richard Betancourt, 4140 Southside Road. I don't understand why you guys up there don't ask the treasurer how much money is she investing and where, and what's the percentage of interest and that sort of thing. I think the public should know that. But those answers could have been answered during the earlier conversation with the unions about how much we have in reserve. Is that the amount that we have in the Treasury that she's investing? Those are the only questions I have.
Mr. Chair, if I could?
Sure.
I do get a quarterly, and I'm hoping that the rest of you do, that we get a quarterly report from the treasurer with all the ins, all the outs, the percentages, and everything that we need to know about our money is in there. And I have oftentimes called when I'm not sure about something and get the answer over the phone. So I am getting that information, and I'm hoping the rest of the board is. So, yeah, we do ask those questions, and we ask that we stay informed on where that money is going.
Mr. Chair.
Okay. Mary Lou, go ahead.
I'd like to mention that the investment report with all that information that you're requesting is on our website, our webpage, under the county's website.
Mary Lou, do you
And
have,
it's reported quarterly.
and do you have hard copies in your office, or is this just on the website?
We have a copy that's available for the public to come and look at.
Okay.
We also have, if they ask, they can get a copy at a cost.
Okay, okay. But it is available on the web?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
$59.30.
Okay, what is the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion to approve per staff recommendation. Resolution number?
2014-6.
2014-6.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes 5-0. We will now return to the regular agenda items, number 15.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, item 15 on our regular agenda is going to be presented to us by our Public Works Department, Steve Whittree, Director of Public Works, as well as Adam Goldstone. We have also our Sheriff, Darren Thompson, here to present to your board the design of the AB 900 jail expansion project. Steve?
And actually, my words are going to be turning over to Darren. There you go.
Thank you, Steve. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board. It's our privilege to bring to you a progress report today. There's no action request of the board. This is an update on our long-term project of expanding our jail. And today you'll hear from our project manager and county employee, Adam Goldstone, and you'll also hear from our contract architect provider, who Adam will introduce for you at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Hi there, good afternoon. Just as I'm here just to kind of give a brief update on where we've been on this project over the past few years. As you may or may not remember, this project first came to light in 2007, where we applied and were awarded $15,053,000 in financing by the state. We had to bring about another $5 million to the table to make that project work. Sensing that other counties were having issues as well, the state went ahead with a Phase 2 process in 2011, which we applied for and also were successful in. That brought our obligation down to 5% of the project cost, which I will show you here in just a moment. It covered a lot more of the project costs as well, so it was a tremendous deal for the county. Once we had the project established with the state, that's a term of theirs, and the award for the architectural design was awarded by your board last July. The Sheriff's Office Public Works have been working with the consultant HMC Architects since July to get us to the point we're at now, which is we kind of have the schematic design done, and we've coordinated with the state, and everything's moving very well. As you can see from the slide here on the project history, we've met several times, and we've had tours of some other recent local jail projects to kind of really hash out some of the things we like or dislike. And just to recap the funding here, the state of California is providing $15,053,000, which covers 95% of the total project cost. This includes all the consultant fees, actual construction, furnishings, things like that. The county's in-kind match is 4.8% of the project cost, or $761,000, which includes value for the land that we already owned, previous consultant studies from back when the 2007 application and even from before that, as well as county staff time from Public Works and Sheriff's Office working on this project through completion. The cash match is just a small 0.2% of architectural costs to help us with the application that we're not eligible for reimbursement. So we were able to limit how much we really needed help on to this small amount here.
Adam, of the $15 million for the construction, who's responsible for any cost overrun on the project, if there is any?
The state will only pay up to that amount. So if the project does come in more, it will be on us. So it is our obvious goal to make sure that doesn't happen. And so everything we've been working on and will continue to work on is keeping this under budget.
Okay. Yeah.
And before I introduce the architect to talk about where we're at, are there any other questions related to the process or the funding? No? Okay.
Any other questions of Adam?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I don't know if this question was asked. Adam, we are making sure that we're containing that cost, local cost cash match, right?
That has already been done and spent, and that part is over.
So that $32,000 is what we're going to pay out in terms of local cash contribution?
It's already been done, yes.
It's already been done, okay.
Yes.
So there's no, oh, you know what, we forgot this, we're going to have to pay more on this, none of that stuff?
Not on any of the costs that are eligible for reimbursement.
Okay.
So all of those costs have been identified with the state. They've gone over everything, and they continue to go over everything.
Do you
And-
foresee any unallowable expense that the county will have to pick up down the road in relation to this project?
I don't foresee any. We are, we have our budget, and we are designing the project and our time to fit that.
Okay.
And that's what we've been working on and will continue to work on. Now, whether that means as things go down, something gets cut out, everything will be done to keep it under that number so that the county's obligation doesn't exceed what we've presented here. I mean, that's obviously the goal. Now, we all know unforeseen things happen, but we're trying to see those things. The state's requirements for our cost estimates have contingency upon contingency, escalation factors. There's a lot in there that helps us keep this managed well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions of Adam? Okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
And now John McAllister with HMC Architects will continue with the presentation. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Pleasure to be here, and thank you in advance for your time. I've had the pleasure of working with the County of San Benito on this important project with the sheriff, with Adam, and other stakeholding parties for this project. HMC Architects has a particular expertise in this project type, so we're not delving into unknown territory. And so far the project is going along just fine, actually better than fine, I think. What we're looking at right here is basically a history of the program, architectural space program, which started out at about just short of 28,000 square feet. We're just slightly over 29,000 square feet. And working with our cost estimators and also my own planning expertise to work out the project area with the budget and even that out. Right now, the budget is balanced. It's a natural progress at the end of schematic design where we're trying to get as much project as we possibly can for the given budget, and it's my responsibility on behalf of HMC to see to it that at the end of each phase this project is within the budget. So I can tell you right now with a great deal of surety that we are where we need to be for this stage of project development. Early on in the game, we went and looked at some other similar facilities to this one to see what other counties were building, to see what the best practices were, to see how far people were going with their budgets. We went and visited Madera Jail, for instance, locally. We went and visited Stanislaus Jail. Stanislaus was a particularly fetching jail project, if you will. They got a lot of bang for their buck and had a very, very nice facility designed. And so we're taking some of our cues from this facility in particular. We started with site planning. You'll see up on the board here quite a different number of different site options, trying to optimize the layout of the facility, trying to minimize the amount of site needed and therefore minimize the costs associated with site development. And after a number of different options, came up with what we considered to be an optimal solution for siting the project and its various components. We then went into various planning exercises and looking at different ways of taking the various components of the project and planning them out in a way that is both operationally effective, organizationally effective, and also cost effective in terms of the amount of space it takes to achieve our goals within a building. That includes housing, a new lobby administration and staff area, a new intake release area, and medical services area. It's a complex little puzzle, but
Mr. Chairman, if
Yes.
I have a question since you're on this, and one of the things I've always thought is that maybe the state should have like 3 plans, and here's your 3 plans to save money on trying to do some of this work. But now that you're on this topic, and one of the biggest worries I've had from day one when we started this project 4 or 5 years ago is how are we going to staff it? As you probably heard earlier this morning, the county has minimal staffing in all our departments, and with this jail expansion, this is terrific, great opportunity for this county and working in partnerships with other counties. Is the design concepts taking into account minimal staffing that obviously we're going to have well into the future? Is that something that, you know, besides housing the inmates
Right, right.
and all that, but we're going to have minimal staff working at the jail?
Absolutely. Now, I can answer part of that question, and the part I can answer is from an architect's point of view who plans these projects to what we call best practices, industry best practices. Part of our primary concern is to minimize the staffing required to oversee the operations of a facility such as this. Always a primary concern, because when you get down to it, the cost of the facility is nothing compared to ongoing staffing expenses over the years. So by code, by what is required for the operation of a facility such as this facility has been designed to the absolute minimum requirements for staffing such a facility. It's a very, very staff-efficient facility.
Okay, that's great, because now's the time to emphasize that.
Absolutely, and that's one of my primary responsibilities. I think Adam.
Yeah, I just wanted to elaborate on that. That is one of the primary goals we have tasked them with is keeping the amount of additional staff down to a minimum. Now, we don't know what those numbers are yet. There still has to be some review by the state. There's still some more design work going on after today. But an operational plan that would dictate how many more staff will be coming to you for approval as part of the state's process. When we know what that is and when they require it, that discussion will certainly be happening. But until then, that is, of course, a primary goal: keep it under budget, keep the staffing to a reasonable level. Yeah.
May I have a follow-up question? Adam, will the state mandate a certain level like they do, like the security at the courthouse? You know, they
Sure.
mandate and we have to, or will they allow us to be some flexibility and not expect us to follow?
There's a little bit of both. They do have established ratios for the number of correctional officers per inmate.
Recommended? Mandate?
Well, there's mandated, and I believe there's a few levels, but obviously there is a set limit. At some point, you get to that limit. So if we have more inmates, we don't know where those ratios are at, with the number of beds and things like that, what that number will correlate to. But we do have flexibility with the other aspects of the facility.
Okay.
So while they will dictate that aspect, and again, there's ways with operations. That's why it's more than just a staffing plan. It's an operational statement, too, that the sheriff's office would come up with to see between two control rooms and the different pods what makes sense for their routing and their staffing and things like that.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So the planning exercise, we're pretty much achieved an optimal plan right now. We're just doing some adjustments to put the diet on and really fine-tune it down to its essence. The current site plan is, you can see that the building blocks there are very simple, aiding in reducing the overall construction cost. So we've got a compact site, minimal travel distances, minimal site work and costs, utilizing existing amenities where possible, and we've also master planned for additional beds into the future so that those can be added, taking advantage of our work right now well into the future as needed. The current buildings overall, once again, a very compact plan, simple plan, circulation sight lines, which aid in safety and security, shortest travel distances, which aids in the staffing issue, and also ample opportunities for daylighting. One of the things that we do as architects, of course, is try to provide an environment that is safe, functional, but also humane, better for the county staff who are going to be working there, and better for the inmates, for that matter. I'm not going to go into each of the individual departments. Suffice it to say that in the development of each of these departments, we've been able to add, without adding square footage, we've been able to add certain amenities. For instance, in the housing units, where we have created multi-purpose rooms that are sized by coincidence actually, to be converted to additional housing down the line, and then an additional multi-purpose room could be added to support that. We've also been able to add an interview exam room. We've been able to do some other things, such as back here, add an additional multi-purpose room for the use of the existing jail, which will be important with AB 900 coming in, longer-term inmates. So what we've been able to do by collaborating with the sheriff and the county in the design of this facility is actually to add more components, program components, than were initially envisioned for within the same budget, okay? Which is both a challenge and an opportunity. We're working right now in the very early architectural design direction, trying, once again, we have a very tight budget, but trying to create a new public facade for the facility that is both simple and elegant, and also a good civic presence for the facility. Realizing this is a growing county, we feel that it's important to kind of shield some of the older jail facility and provide kind of a non-threatening and civic kind of proud presence to the new facility in so much as the budget will allow. So we're studying that right now with various massing models and different construction techniques to allow us to build a facility that the county can be proud of, that its users can be proud of, and that will serve the county for many years to come. So I described the budget. We are within probably 3% of the budget right now. We're resolving that as we speak, in nipping and tucking here and there, not a problem. The schedule synopsis, once again, we're at schematics. We're finishing that up at the end of the month. After that, we'll go into design development with the staffing plan that Adam Matt mentioned. That should be completed 4/30/2014. By 6/10, we'll have the full staffing and operational cost analysis, right? We'll then go into construction documents, construction bids, notice to proceed, and so far, and then the construction, which should be completed in 2017, with occupancy shortly thereafter. So we're on schedule. We're banging right along. The next steps, basically final update to the architectural program, adjusting the building plans for program code and budget compliance. We're doing that as we speak. Reviewing the building elevations and general design direction. We'll complete the SD development by the end of this month, working with the cost estimator to get everything in alignment so that we can deliver that package at the end of the month in its entirety. Finishing all the submittal requirements, working with the sub-consultants right now so that by January 31st we'll have the full schematic design package in the hands of the county. And then we'll move on after approvals to the next phase. So thank you very much for the opportunity, and we're moving right along here. Thank you.
Any other questions?
One more question. Initially, one of the challenges was connecting the old to the new.
Yes.
And I know that the state was very particular about how we were going to do that, because you couldn't have an existing wall be the wall of the new. So how did, just briefly,
Yeah, well,
how were you able to solve that?
we look at the overall site plan here, the existing jail here, and this being all of the new construction. And essentially, there's a line, this connecting walkway between the new and the existing, which will end up being an exterior covered walkway. And where that covered walkway meets the existing building, there'll be an expansion joint of about 1 inch.
I figured as much. They figured out a way how to.
There's always a way.
There's
Sometimes
always
you
a
have
way.
to bang your
Good,
heads
good to
together.
hear.
but
Thank you.
that's-
Thank you,
thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Any other questions? Is that it for the presentation?
That's the presentation. If you have
Okay.
any further questions, we have, obviously, all
Okay.
staff here for you.
Okay.
There's no action required today, just an update to the board, show you our status, and let's turn to the next steps.
Okay. Well, I hope you heard the marching orders of under budget, You know, we cannot afford another surprise like the surprise we got across the street. So that has to come under budget. Thank you. We'll move on to the next item.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is item number 16 on our agenda, really kind of a second part to what we just discussed. It's requesting your board to adopt a resolution to modify the AB 900 jail expansion project's approved project scope summary as required by the California Board of State and Community Corrections, as well as adopting an amendment to the adopted final mitigated negative declaration. And we have Steve here to answer any questions.
That's pretty much a summary of the process. Basically, it's almost a formality, if you will. We're looking at the finalized environmental document. One of the things that we have done in the process of trying to make this the most universally accepted and most flexible plan for the sheriff was go to this dorm style of, as opposed to individual cells or two-person cells. It's more of a dorm style to cut costs and maximize inmate capacity. One of the things that allowed us is to potentially have more inmates than we actually first analyzed. So that adjustment of those extra inmates that may be able to go in there is reflected in this document. So, and it's a request that we modify that to the state for the process.
And Mr. Chair, but we will still have areas that have higher security. Certainly, when you put that many people together, it's going to pose a problem. So.
That's part of the initial process is looking at the existing jail facility is still going to be in use. So that's as part of the puzzle. That's a piece of the puzzle that we assemble. That's where the people need to be, you know, individualized detention or the issues that happen over there will still remain in the old facility. Some of the lessers, if you will, the more amenable folks, will be able to go into the dorm style. So it'll basically, the thing to remember is very important for the architects to remember as well is that this is going to be a joint facility. It's not just a brand new jail. We have a joint. We have some existing things that we can take advantage of, such as the maximum security areas, and maybe this one we can save some dollars and actually get some more inmate housing for perhaps some of the lessers on the other side, the new side that we're under construction or in the process of designing.
Yeah, and I appreciate everything that's been done because I know that we sit up here, we get the final, you know, product and not really give a lot of thought to what really goes on in getting to this point. And so I want to thank staff. It looks like it's going to be a real asset for our community, and I appreciate all that hard work. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions from the board? Any questions from members of the public? What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, I'll move approval and adoption of resolution number 2014-7 per staff recommendation.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
We'll move on to item number 17. Mr. Espinoza?
Yes, Mr. Chair, this item number 17 is from the County Council. It is seeking approval by the board today of an agreement with law firms of Myers Nave for legal services related to the condemnation proceedings existing at Hospital Road Bridge and the Union Road Bridge projects in an amount not to exceed $50,000. Ms. Murphy is here to answer any questions that the board might have about this contract.
So this is regarding the two, the Hospital Road Bridge project and the Union Road Bridge project. We have had some unique legal issues arise in connection with both projects that are a little outside the ordinary. We had retained Brenda Aguilar Guerrero to assist on a single property that is, well, we're trying to resolve, but there's a possibility we may need to come to you for a request to consider initiating eminent domain. So we had her helping us on some of the legal issues with regard to that property. But as she's been working with us on that one, some bizarre issues have come up on a couple others. So we're here today to ask to extend the scope. We're still not at a point with any of these properties to request eminent domain authorization, but just in case it gets to that point, we want to make sure that we're getting everything all lined up appropriately. And as I say, a number of somewhat complex legal issues have been raised by some of the property owners' attorneys or banks in trying to, I mean, we had one willing seller who settled with us over a year ago, and we're still trying to get the bank to issue a partial reconveyance on the loan. And so in any event, we believe this will enable us to close out most, if not all, of the acquisitions needed for these projects. If there is one or more than one that we're just not able to resolve, we'll address that later with a request to modify the contract. Ms. Aguilar Guerrero assisted COG in all of the eminent domain cases related to the Highway 25 bypass. She's an expert in the field. She teaches the courses to other attorneys. So we're well served with her at the helm, and she's also very efficient. Her time and billings are definitely well controlled, and so we believe she'll do a really good job for the county.
Any questions from the board?
I just want to say that anything get this going. I hope to see a bridge there at Hospital Road and maybe the Union Road, but either of those bridges done before I die.
Well, I think we're getting close on Hospital Road. We're a little bit more at the early stages on Union, but hopefully those will resolve soon as well.
That's
Okay, all right. I concur, especially Hospital Road Bridge. It has been, that crossing has been out far, far too long.
15 years.
Yes. We need to get that done sooner than later. Whatever it takes to get it done, we need to get that done and moving that project forward.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair. Shirley, senior principal, we're paying them at $350 an hour. Is that what we've been, is that what the current?
If you go to page 3, it shows that for Brenda Aguilar Guerrero, she's a partner providing services as the principal attorney at $325 an hour.
Okay, $25 difference. $325. Isn't that a lot, or is that something that we've always been paying her?
Well, for somebody at her level, that's actually a pretty good deal.
Well, I wouldn't say yes and no. I know we had our relationship with her in COG and Supervisor Patel and myself. But didn't we have a policy or a stipulation or a budget,
Yes.
Joe, that
Supervisor Batello's policy is a dime a dozen. So.
yeah.
I mean, what the advantage in
okay.
the advantage in using somebody at her level of
Let's
expertise.
just do it $100 an hour then, if that's the case.
The advantage of using somebody at her level of expertise is that she turns things around very quickly, and she really does. I don't think she bills us for all of her time, even as efficient as she is, because her time estimates and her bills are quite low.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay, anybody from the public? Seeing none, what's the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion to approve legal services agreement with law firm of Myers, Nave, Reback, Silver, and Wilson in the amount not to exceed $50,000 for legal services related to acquisition of right-of-way of Hospital Road Bridge and Union Road Bridge projects, and authorize chair to sign the agreement.
Second?
Okay. Before I ask for the vote, I do want to ask this one question. If we have to go down the eminent domain road, you're going to be coming back to us for additional contract,
Right.
correct? So I just want to prepare the board that we may be approving another one of these to get the project done.
It would be a new contract, and also, before we would even initiate, there's a process we would go through with the resolution of necessity that would be
Yeah,
brought
I
before you.
just want to forewarn the board.
And one other thing just to be aware of, although this is a very important piece of the puzzle, this is only one piece of the puzzle to finish this acquisition process. It's very likely, in fact, it's certain that there will be another contract amendment coming before you in the very near future with our property negotiator who actually does the face-to-face with the clients to make sure so that will be coming next meeting. So just be aware that this is not the final step by any means. This is one step along the process.
Good. All right. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley. Moving on to the progress report on the general plan update.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, these next two items, item 18 and 19, felt that it was appropriate to give the board an update on how we're doing with the general plan. It's been over a month now since the last report back to your board, so I wanted Byron to give a report back. So I've asked him to come today and report to you on the general plan, as well as even the Resource Recovery Park project, how that's been going as well. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Currently, the new consultant, EMC, is reviewing the documents that have been provided by Mintier Harnish. The document transfer is complete. The people who are working on this now have the documents. They're reviewing it to see what's in it, familiarizing themselves with the studies, learning what needs to be done and what has been done. So there's not a lot of output during this period, but that's part of what they need to do. We're looking to schedule 2 upcoming meetings for the board. The first one will be an introduction by the consultant to tell you what the program is, how we're going to proceed, or what his how they foresee us proceeding, and followed by a question and answer section, very open. So if you have any questions about how we're going to get from A to B, they'll be open to that. But really an introduction to the process. The second meeting is going to be more of an in-depth workshop where we review each individual change in the general plan and say, are we going to move forward with this, yes or no? And kind of get the buy-off of hopefully this is the one where we're going to try to include the Planning Commission and the board at the same time. Where we can look at each policy in the general plan and say, are we going to move forward with this or not? Are we going to make a change to this or not? This is going to be an in-depth meeting. The Planning Commission has requested that that take place at night in order to maximize public participation. We can talk about that in the future, probably talk about it more at this next meeting that we're going to have, the introduction meeting. So that way there'll be no backtracking, and we all will have then a set point where they can move forward, because they're not going to begin on amending the EIR until we have the general plan complete and everybody knows what the EIR is going to be analyzing. So right now I'm working with the consultant to schedule these 2 upcoming meetings. Hopefully the first one, introductory one, will be if not the next meeting, then the meeting after, one or the other. I've been trading emails today. So we're working on getting that scheduled. And that concludes today's general plan report, and I'm available for any questions.
Any questions? Okay. I think you were here this morning for my little speech.
Yes.
So you heard.
Yes.
I want this done.
I understand where it lies on my priority list.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Byron.
Mr. Chairman, the prior chairman wanted it done too. I hope you're more successful.
And the prior chairman.
Well, we'll see who gets it done.
It's a race.
Probably the next one. Okay, and then are we ready to go on to the next?
Yeah, and the next item, item number 19, is a progress report on the Resource Recovery Park. There was a meeting this last week, and Byron's going to go ahead and update the board on that.
So at the last Wednesday, the Planning Commission took action on the Resource Recovery Park project. The proposed project is to create a Resource Recovery Park zone, or also known as RRP zone, and then apply that RRP designation to a 30-acre site. That site is located near the John Smith Road landfill, 30 acres on the south side of John Smith Road. Shows the zoning there. What there's two parts of it. One of it is creation of a zone. So the zone that's being created is called a combining zone, which is a combining or overlay zone that's applied over previously established zoning districts, establishing stricter standards in addition to the base zoning district. In this case, the base zoning district remains agriculture. Some examples of combining zones that we have today is mineral resource area, floodplain, scenic highway, and open space. So the purpose of creation of this zone and then the application of it to that site is to provide specialized areas where diverted material resources from local and regional waste streams are directed to a controlled facility where recycling, reuse, manufacturing, energy production, and businesses in these fields can locate. And then the zone also provides standards and guidelines for such uses. So the purpose of the Resource Recovery Park is to provide economic development through materials management, facilitating job creation in the green economy. It's for waste diversion and reuse at a centralized location, that location being where the landfill already is, hence the waste diversion aspect of it, which then reduces traffic and greenhouse gas emissions. There's opportunities for renewable energy at the site, and it also provides a modern and convenient household hazardous waste and electronics recycling facility. The CEQA portion of this project, we did what's called a program EIR. A program is prepared on a series of actions for one large project as opposed to a project EIR, which analyzes a specific project. So the program EIR provides the framework analysis, whereas project analysis will happen on a case-by-case basis. So if the RRP zoning ordinance is adopted and the RRP program EIR certified, then any future project will have to go through an application, a consistency determination, its own CEQA analysis, its own public comment, and its own planning commission or staff decision depending on the level of project. And right now we have no current projects are currently proposed, although we have had multiple meetings with businesses who wish to locate here or other places in San Benito County. So at first, we did because the project was recycling, an original draft EIR was released in 2010. That original project changed the zone from ag to industrial. We hadn't come up with this Resource Recovery Park zoning. As a result of the public comment, we revised the project description to prepare a revised EIR. So the public came, they were concerned about industrial zoning being located in that location. So what we've done is created an entirely new zoning designation that does not permit some of the industrial items that is required in industrial zoning, but it will allow for recycling and other types of uses that fit with the next to the landfill. We did another draft EIR in September 2013. The public comment period closed November 14th. It was made public December 16th of 2013. The Planning Commission then heard it on December 18th and January 15th. It will be before your board on February 4th. That's the next meeting. All the appropriate public noticing will be handled for that meeting. This is the Planning Commission recommendation, but what the Planning Commission approved on Wednesday was a resolution which recommends to the Board of Supervisors approval of the new zoning district, which is the Resource Recovery Park overlay, and then also recommend approval of the zone change, subject to the conditions of approval and findings in the resolution. And again, just to wrap it up, creation of a new zoning district and then application of that district to a 30-acre site. So that will be before you in February, but that's the process. You'll likely get a lot of questions about it. You can also direct any questions to the planning department as well if you get any, and feel free to contact me if you have any questions about the project.
Any questions?
Yeah, just for some clarification, Byron, the upcoming meeting, which would be in February, will that be for a final decision? I
believe so. It'll either be your final decision, or if it's, I I'd have to ask county council if it's framed in an ordinance where you do the reading of the ordinance and then, but the intent is to
It'll essentially
get,
be our final, one of our final hearings.
yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Byron, that RRP zoning, did we invent that zoning, or was that zoning out there in other counties and we borrowed language? And, I mean, how,
We looked at what other counties did as well, but staff, along with the consultant, looked at what uses that we wanted to apply there
Made
and
it
what
unique.
uses we wanted to prohibit based on what the public said, and then kind of developed it ourselves.
okay, but they're existing in other places, so we didn't come up with a new zoning that doesn't exist anyplace else as far as RRP zoning.
I don't know that I've seen anything exactly like ours, but there are industrial and quasi-industrial zones in other counties.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Dillon?
Yeah, I want to thank the staff and Planning Commission amount of time that they've spent on this project. I think it's a real important project, and really been very responsive to some of the concerns that the neighbors have brought up, and I think the county has gone out of its way really to make sure that this is a good project that fits the neighborhood. I know there's still some concerns still out there, but the restrictions that have been placed upon this zoning, I think, tightens up, or should have tightened up some of the uses that raises some very valid concerns, and it's going to be a benefit to the county, to job creation, and hopefully hold down our landfill rates and create a revenue stream that every time we have to do a new sell, that there's some sort of other revenues that we could utilize to offset those costs. And that's a benefit for everybody in the county. So I want to just thank you for all the efforts and look forward to the next meeting.
One more comment, Mr.
Go ahead.
Holm. The comments are still out there, the concerns. So the community has actually requested a meeting, like a town hall meeting on the 27th, I believe, and the 28th. And so I'm going to stay after the meeting to talk to council and to you, Byron and Steve, if you could, just to see how we should move forward with this request and what staff can provide for us. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Byron, were there a couple of new conditions put on to the project at the Planning Commission meeting?
At the Planning Commission meeting, there were 2 additional conditions that were added. We took a lot of time developing them and making sure that they were appropriately read to the record. Well, that's right, landscape review, that the landscaping plan would go to the Planning Commission as opposed to be signed off by staff. So there was a landscaping plan review, and then the other one was an annual review, so a report to the Planning Commission on an annual basis about the businesses located there, how they're conforming to the conditions of approval, and just a general update. So those were the 2 conditions.
Okay, so the landscaping condition, business XYZ wants to go in, he would have to present his landscaping plan for his business, not the whole park, for the Planning Commission.
That would be part of it also, but we're talking about even ahead of time. This is the landscape plan that the county will be providing as part of the improvement plans when we do the driveway and everything for the entire site. Individual uses will have to provide their own landscaping based on their use.
So there will be a landscaping plan for the whole project?
Yes, yes.
Okay, and that will go in before any business?
That's the idea, yes.
Okay, thank you. Anybody from the public like to comment on this? Seeing none, I believe that was just a report. Would entertain a motion to adjourn?
Second?
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. We're adjourned.